White Man's Worst Nightmare was essentially his character description. Knowing that they were basically all white writers on, working on the show, it's just like, it's laughable to think that like they could write that and be like, nah, we nailed it. We nailed it.
Yeah.
So we've got one more story we want to do here before we hop out of here. So I'm very curious about what you think about this because I had some definite thoughts. So this past week we got word that Leonard Roberts, who was for all those who could remember the show Heroes, he played DL on, and could they think of like a more black name than
DL Jamal
DL. Yeah. Leonard
Black
Roberts,
Mike.
he played DL Hawkins on the show Heroes, and he and Ali Larter, who essentially she was his co-star in this case, they clearly had some both on-screen and off-screen tensions. Long story short, they didn't fuck with each other is essentially the case. More Ali Larter didn't fuck with him for whatever reason. And so he pens this essay. Heroes, of course, was back in 2005, 2006, I think, somewhere around there. And so all these years later, he pens this essay basically detailing his experience on the show, both with her as well as with the creators of the show, and how, they might be just a little bit racist. So what I kind of want to adjudicate here is talking about sort of like everything that he did, everything that he put into the essay, and like what my read of it is, what your read of it is, yada yada. So here's the first part of it, right? Is Ali Larter racist? Let's start there, right? I don't know if you read the actual essay or not, but I read the actual whole essay. From what he was saying, from what he was detailing, it didn't really sound like that was necessarily the case. So basically, through the essay, he lists a couple different things of like the reasons why they kind of had tension, or examples of the tensions that they had between one another. For the one, there was a scene in Heroes, I think one of his first scenes in Heroes, where they're like in bed together. And she didn't want to, like, he's got his shirt off in the scene, and she like basically they were asking her to essentially like not take everything off fully, but just like take off the straps. I guess she was wearing maybe a spaghetti string. I don't know what the fuck to call clothing, but like they were like straps or something like that. They just wanted her to lower the straps, so it appeared as though she was naked along with them, even though she would be like clothed underneath that. And she had a very strong unwillingness to do so, so much so that they like kind of had like this blow up where she was arguing, I guess, with the producers of the show or the creators of the show. And she didn't actually even include him in that conversation, which is strange since he's the person in the scene with her. But then, Roberts, he details how there's another scene where she had with a dude who played Nathan Petrelli, I believe his name's Adrian Pazdar, where she's having like kind of basically like a sexual scene with him as well. Now, to my remembrance, this is actually like a clothed scene, but it seemed like she was much more willing to do that than to do this scene with DL, or with Leonard in this case, or I guess his character being DL.
Hawkins, yep.
I'm going to ask what your thoughts on that particular that piece of evidence before I jump in with what I think about that.
Yeah, I think racist is like it's like a striking word, right? And a lot of times, like, it's used in a way to label people or label actions that like aren't necessarily like racist, but like maybe they're rooted in like I feel more comfortable, or I don't know, maybe she could have been like, I don't know if I feel comfortable like doing this scene with this like black guy, right? Maybe that's a thing. Is that like racist? Because racist is like I believe I'm superior to this person based off of my skin or my race, right? Maybe she's just, I don't like this dude, right? I don't want to be in bed naked with this guy. I don't want to take off my clothes around this guy. I don't want to have like sexual scenes with that guy, with this guy. Is that racist? Not really. Is it? Could it be partially rooted in race? Maybe. Or again, she could have just not really fucked with him. they, sometimes like as an actor or actress, you either have chemistry with somebody or you don't. If you don't have it, then you're going to not necessarily be willing to do certain scenes with them. I don't, based off of what I've read and what I've learned about this, I wouldn't necessarily label her racist.
Yep. So my read on that particular portion of it is that there's a difference between like unclothing yourself, even if it is just like a little bit, and having a sexual like having like a racy scene with somebody where like you're acting seductive or you're being seduced or whatever the case is, right? Those are two different things. One, you're undressing yourself. The other, you're not, and you're just acting in a sexy way. I don't know or care about Ali Larter, but if that's where she's coming from, then okay. Like,
yeah.
Clearly that should have been something that they all talked about beforehand, but okay. So I don't see that necessarily as an indication of like even her having a problem with him necessarily, right? Like, so much as like she just didn't want to like unclothe herself, which is, given the fact that how that can like impact like the rest of your career, that's like a thing that some people just don't want to do, right? Because they think it's going to like shun them from other roles or maybe get them typecast in other roles or whatever the case is. It's completely fine, right? Whatever you feel from that perspective. Do I think it's an indication about how she feels about him or that if she is racist? No, just like you, right? But what I would say is that his whole breakdown of, his interactions with her, like there was like a press tour or like a tour that they were supposed to go on where she wasn't really like fucking with him. He wasn't really fucking with her, or that I guess they were supposed to go on. He didn't really go on that with her. But she was just like cold to him basically is sort of, and it was really well publicized that like it was in the tabloids and everything that she didn't really fuck with him. I don't know. It's hard to say whether that's racism on her part or she just does, because like what's the difference there? Unless there's like a specific thing that you can say is like, that's like a racist thing you did. It's like sometimes people just don't fuck with other people, right? Sometimes you just don't like somebody, and even if it is a black dude, like, and you're a white woman, like it's just like, yeah, like sometimes you just don't vibe with them, Now, there's a very easy way we can find out like kind of relatively what the answer to this is. And the answer lies with a very suave and debonair gentleman. His name is Idris Elba. The reason why is because she did an entire fucking movie where she was put into very many sexual situations with Idris Elba in Obsessed. The movie that I think it's a 2009 movie that he did with, Idris Elba, Ali Larter, and Beyonce.
I think Beyonce was in that movie.
Yeah. So we can ask Idris Elba, hey, did she ever like gag when you guys were together? And she like, the thought of you touching you is gross, and I think that then can confirm, perhaps his suspicion that, race played a part with her. Now, the thing that I think is a much more clear example of racism is how he's treated by the producers of the show or the creators of the show. That I think is a clear indication that, they were, even if you're not going to say racist, which is, I think that the shit that they sent and did was racist. But you'd have to say that it was definitely prejudice at best. And so, running through some of his examples is, first of all, his for the pilot, the description of his character was a white man's worst dream or worst nightmare, I guess, is how they put it. A white man's worst nightmare was essentially his character description, which is like knowing that they were basically all white writers on, working on the show. It's just like, it's laughable to think that like they could write that and be like, nah, we nailed it. We nailed it.
Yeah.
They know exactly what we mean by he's sagging his pants. He's from jail. He's aggressive,
a smart black man with superpowers who's fucking a white woman. Yeah. Worst nightmare. Like that's basically it. It's like this is our deepest, darkest fears have come to fruition.
Yeah. So that's one example. And then another example is basically instead of like kicking her off the show, they kick him off the show. Because of their problem. So it was never really like a question of like, oh, like, can we try to either work this out or, whatever. It was just basically just like, yeah, we know we're going to keep her. We definitely know we're not going to keep you. And, I would have to think that race played some sort of part in that. And then also too, he kept saying like they were, whenever they did like photo shoots or anything like that, like the black people would basically be pushed either to the sides or the back of the photo shoot, and all the white people, pushed to the front, which is, basically just an example of this sort of systemic, racism.
It's the same people who did the poster for Couples Retreat with Phase on Love, remember?
Yeah.
Same people.
100%. So I think that he clearly has more of an example from how the studio has reacted in that case than Ali Larter.
Than her specifically, yeah.
Yeah. And so, because we're running out of time here, one of the things I did want to point out, though, was he said something towards the end of this that I thought was fucking enormously powerful. Although I guess before I say that, one other thing that he said that was curious or funny was that he was talking to a co-star about this, and the co-star was like, man, come on, they definitely didn't get rid of you because you're black, or like, do you really believe that they got rid of you because they're black? Because you're black. I guess this is the white guy this is a white guy that he was talking to. He's like, and then, the co-star he was talking to was like, well, of course they're going to keep the hot blonde woman, on the show. And it's just like, well, yeah, isn't that? Well, yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
And so I thought that was hilarious. And then, so the one thing that I thought was like a brilliant statement from him that he wrote was, so with the pain, there is resolve by tearing away the boards I have put up with sharing my story. I make this experience valid. In doing so, I hope to be a part of rebuilding that ensures my child a future in which she feels heard, seen, and valid, where she need not demand, but simply expect the respect and equality she deserves. I thought that last part was fucking brilliant. And I don't know if you got that from anywhere or if that's like a common saying, but I thought that was just like, that's it. That's everything in that case, where she need not demand, but simply expect respect, and equality she deserves, and I think that sums up, what so many people feel, is that, other people, who already have, a certain amount of leeway in society, they say, I don't know what everybody's complaining about. I don't know what everybody's making a big deal about. It's that statement right there of, it shouldn't be something that we have to demand. It should be something that's just given, and it's not,
and those who expect it, right, and who receive it often don't understand like the plight of those who have to fight for it. They're just like, well, like, what's the big deal? Yeah. So I think that was a great way to close out his essay.
Yeah.
But I think there's some details about this that we don't know, and either way, I hope he finds, or I'm happy he found resolve in writing this essay and telling his story. And she issued an apology. I don't know how heartfelt it was, or if her publicist wrote it.
Her apology was the same that my girl always gives me when she doesn't want to apologize for something, but she thinks it's an apology. She was basically just like, "Hey, I'm sorry that you felt bad.
I'm sorry that you felt that way."
It's like, all right, well, that's not a fucking apology. You're just expressing how I feel bad, and you're like, I'm sorry you feel that way, which is not anything at all. That's nothing at all. But in any event, let us know in the comment section what you think about the Ali Larter, Leonard Roberts situation. Do you think she's full on Third Reich, or is that maybe a bit far in terms of her being like mad racist? Maybe it's just a case where she just didn't fuck with him, and maybe more of the blame is on the actual studio for being a smidge racist. But anyway, that is our show, ladies and gentlemen.